20 used SUVs you can buy in 2026 for less than the down payment on a new one, and every one of them has a documented shot at outliving the shiny thing sitting on the showroom floor this afternoon. That's the deal. Not 20 vehicles that look tough in a parking lot. 20 specific nameplates with model years attached that keep turning up on the odometer studies with 250,000 miles under them, and that you can still find for the price of about a year of new car payments. Here's the arithmetic that makes this worth half an hour of your time. In June 2026, the average new car sold for $49,750. The average used listing was running around $25,000 earlier this year, and anything under $15,000 had about 31 days of supply in February, which in dealer language means it's gone before the wash bay dries. Meanwhile, the odds on any random vehicle reaching 250,000 miles are terrible. One study that went through almost 400 million cars puts the industry average at 4.8%. That's your baseline. That's what you're beating. I've had the radiator out of a 4th generation 4Runner enough times that I stopped looking up the sequence, and the difference between a machine built to be understood and one built to be replaced is visible the second the hood comes up. That's the thread running through all 20 of these. 3 things to stay for. Number 9 is on this list at a discount created almost entirely by one $200 part that the factory got wrong, and I'll tell you exactly how to neutralize it. Number 12 is the same badge and the same engine size, one model year apart, where one version is a coin flip and the other one isn't. And number 17 currently sits at the top of the biggest longevity study anyone runs at 39.1%, which is roughly 8 times the average. We'll get there. Let's start with the one I'd buy tomorrow. Before the count, one idea to hold on to because it explains every single pick. Nothing on this list is here because of a badge. It's here because of what got left in and what got taken out. Every vehicle you'll hear named survived a moment where somebody in a cost meeting decided whether the part that fails first would be a part you can reach or a part buried behind the whole front of the engine. That's the comparison running through all 20 items. Overbuilt and serviceable on one side, quietly cheapened and sealed shut on the other. Sometimes those two versions are separated by 10 years, sometimes, as you'll see at number 12, by 1. And the data backs the hunch. Only 4 brands on the entire market beat that 4.8% average, and they're all Japanese: Toyota, Lexus, Honda, and Acura. Toyota as a brand averages about 17.8%. This list leans that way for a reason. It isn't fandom, it's arithmetic. Number 1. The Toyota 4Runner, 4th generation, 2003 through 2009. This is the one I'd own if somebody handed me 10 grand and told me to make it last a decade. Body on frame, live rear axle, a 4-liter V6 or the 4.7 V8, and a cabin engineered by people who assumed you'd be scraping mud out of it in 15 years. The nameplate carries about a 32.9% chance of reaching 250,000 miles, nearly 7 times the industry number. What makes it last is boring and mechanical. The V8, the 2UZ FE, is an iron block engine, and independent Toyota specialists describe it as the gold standard of reliable mid-size iron block V8s. The same engine went into the Tundra, Sequoia, Land Cruiser, and the Lexus GX and LX. Iron block means the cylinder walls don't distort when some previous owner runs it low on coolant at 70 in August. Not a small thing on a vehicle you're buying with unknown history. Now the caveat, and it's what separates people who buy these well from people who get burned. The 4th gen has a radiator with the transmission cooler built into it, and when the internal wall between coolant and transmission fluid gives up, the two mix into a thick pink sludge. Owners call it the pink milkshake, and it goes straight into the transmission where the coolant destroys the friction material. Cheap part, catastrophic outcome. So here's the move. Before you hand over money, pull the transmission dipstick and look at the fluid in daylight. Red or dark brown is fine. Anything pink, milky, or streaky, walk away and don't negotiate. And on any 4th gen you actually buy, budget a fresh radiator, and if you tow, an external cooler that bypasses the internal one entirely. $200 of parts against a transmission, which brings me straight to its twin, same bones, better seats, and for years a lower price. Number 2. The Lexus GX 470, 2003 through 2009. Same platform, same 4.7 V8, leather everywhere, and a badge that scares off exactly the buyers who'd bid the price up. By the way, if you drive an SUV and want to keep it reliable for hundreds of thousands of miles without wasting money at the repair shop, I put together a guide called the 500K Mile Car Care Bible. It covers 101 habits that can help your SUV last longer, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot mechanic upsells that quietly drain your wallet. To get your copy, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or grab it from the first pinned comment below. One national marketplace currently shows 175 of them listed with the cheapest around $8,900, and I'll be straight with you. Prices on these bounce hard by region and condition, so treat every number in this video as a band, not a promise. The thing you must check is the timing belt. It's due every 90,000 miles and the engine is an interference design, meaning a snapped belt drives the pistons into the valves and ends the engine. Shop cost runs somewhere between about $1,100 and $1,400 because the radiator, fan, alternator, and power steering pump all have to come off to get at it. So the negotiation is simple. No receipt for the belt, that's $1,400 off the asking price, and you're not being unreasonable. Why Toyota used a rubber belt on an engine otherwise built like an anvil, I've never seen properly explained. My read is packaging and noise, not cost, but that's my read, not something Toyota ever published, and I'd rather tell you I'm guessing than dress a guess up as a fact. Look for a sticker on the timing cover with a date and mileage on it. That's how the good shops mark the job. Now let's come down in size and up in fuel economy, because not everybody needs a truck. Number 3. The Honda CR-V, 3rd generation, 2007 through 2011. This is the sensible answer, and it's a genuinely great one. The K24 4-cylinder is chain-driven, so there's no belt clock ticking, and the whole vehicle is assembled with the assumption that a normal person with hand tools might one day be under it. It's one of the most widely available SUVs under $10,000 in the country, and shops that put them on the lift regularly report the undercarriages hold up unusually well. The one thing people skip: the rear differential fluid on all-wheel drive versions. It's a specific Honda fluid, it's cheap, and when it's neglected, you get a shudder on tight turns that people misdiagnose as a transmission problem and then sell the car over. $30 of fluid fixes a car somebody just gave up on. Next one is the CR-V's rival, and it comes with a trap in specific model years. Number 4. The Toyota RAV4, 2009 through 2012. Buy this generation, and buy it with either the 2AR 4-cylinder or the V6. Here's why the years matter. Toyota ran a warranty enhancement program, code ZE7, covering excessive oil consumption on the 2AZ engine in, among others, certain 2006 through 2008 RAV4s. The catch was you had to fail their test first, they'd seal the engine, send you off for 1,200 miles, and only if you'd burned more than a quart did you qualify. The fix when you got it was a full piston replacement, around 15 hours of labor. That program is long expired, so on an 06 through 08 you're on your own. On an 09 and up, you're buying a different engine and the problem largely goes away. One model year band, completely different ownership experience. Which is a decent moment to talk about a company that tried to be clever and paid for it. Number 5. The Honda Pilot, 1st generation, 2003 through 2008. This is the 3-row I'd actually hand to a family with a tight budget, and the reason is a single engineering decision Honda made and then unmade. The engine is the J35 V6. Forged steel crankshaft, a simple single overhead cam valve train, cast iron cylinder liners, and a non-interference design. So if the timing belt lets go, the more likely outcome is it stalls rather than destroys itself. Owners on the 1st gen forums report 300,000 miles on the original engine with nothing exotic done to it. That's the kind of claim I'd normally discount, except the same reports come from too many separate people over too many years. Now the part that matters for your wallet. Starting in 2008, Honda leaned hard on variable cylinder management, shutting down half the cylinders under light load to save fuel. On specific vehicles built between 2008 and 2013, that system caused excessive oil burning and engine misfires. The class action covered roughly 1.6 million vehicles, including 2009 through 2013 pilots. And Honda denied the allegation while having quietly issued a service bulletin in July 2011 acknowledging the system was switching on and off repeatedly under light throttle. It eventually extended the powertrain warranty to 8 years with no mileage limit. Somebody on that forum summed the technology up in one line: it was added to squeeze out roughly 1 extra mile per gallon. Think about the trade. 1 mile per gallon against fouled plugs, burned oil, and a lawsuit. That's the whole story of this list in miniature, and it's a preview of number 12, where a different company made the identical bet with a V8 and made it much worse. So the first 5 are the same argument in different sheet metal. The parts that kill vehicles are almost never the engine block. They're the clever bit somebody bolted on to hit a fuel economy number, or the cheap component sitting between two fluids that must never meet. From here it gets more specific and more profitable for you because the next stretch is where the discounts get irrational. Still holding number 9 and number 17. Number 6. The Toyota Highlander 2008 through 2013. Unibody, 3 rows if you squint, and the 2GR FE V6, the same engine family that turns up in the Lexus RX and half of Toyota's lineup for a decade. The non-hybrid Highlander sits 17th on the current longevity list with about a 15.7% chance of 250,000 miles. 3 times the industry average in a comfortable school-run vehicle nobody thinks twice about. Check for a water pump that's weeping, and on higher mileage examples, ask when the spark plugs were last done, because the rear bank means the intake has to come off and shops price that job accordingly. Number 7. The Toyota Sequoia, first generation 2001 through 2007, the cheapest way into a 2UZ V8 and a full-size frame. But you need to know one thing, and it's the biggest single reason these are cheap. Toyota settled a class action covering 2005 to 2010 Tacomas, 2007 to 2008 Tundras, and 2005 to 2008 Sequoias, agreeing to inspect frames free and replace any with rust perforation of 10 millimeters or more. An inspection they costed at about $60 a vehicle and a frame replacement at about $15,000. The total was around $3.4 billion across roughly 1.5 million trucks. The program ran 12 years from the date the vehicle was sold, which means for everything on this list it has already expired, so you inspect it yourself. Get under it with a small hammer and tap the frame rails, especially over the rear axle and around the leaf spring hangers. Solid steel rings. Rotten steel thuds and flakes. A rusty frame is not a repair. It's the end of the vehicle, and no engine on earth saves it. Number 8. The Lexus RX 350 2007 through 2012. Quiet, cheap to run, boring in the best sense. The hybrid version is rated with about a 17% chance of 250,000 miles, roughly 3.5 times the market average. The gas 350 shares the same V6 as the Highlander, so you're buying proven hardware wearing better sound insulation. Consumer Reports' used vehicle reliability ranking from December 2025 puts Lexus at the top with 77 points, followed by Toyota, Mazda, Honda, and Acura. Same 4 names, over and over from completely independent methodologies. Number 9. The Nissan Xterra 2005 through 2015. Here's the one I flagged. This SUV is cheap out of proportion to how good it is, and the reason is a radiator. On 2005 to 2010 models with the automatic, a defect in the radiator's internal transmission cooler lets coolant into the transmission, the strawberry milkshake of death as the owners named it, and it destroys the transmission. Nissan extended the warranty from 3 years or 36,000 miles to 8 years or 80,000 in 2007, then a settlement pushed partial coverage to 10 years or 100,000. And even then owners faced deductibles as high as $3,000. Now here's why I'm still recommending it. The failure is entirely preventable and the prevention is cheap. The safest fix is to bypass the radiator's internal cooler completely and run a separate external transmission cooler. Use a new radiator, not a used one, because used and reconditioned units can carry the same defect. And from 2011 onward, the risk is considered extremely low because Nissan redesigned the radiator. So, a 2011 or later Xterra is a straightforward buy. An earlier one, bought at a discount created by a fault you then permanently engineer out for a few $100s, is one of the best value plays on this entire list. Check the transmission fluid before you buy. Consistent red is fine, pink or milky means stop driving and call a tow truck. Number 10. The Toyota Land Cruiser 100 Series 1998 through 2007. Yes, really, and no, not at auction hero prices. You have to hunt and you have to accept a high odometer. An earlier edition of the same longevity study back when Land Cruiser sales in the States had just ended put it near the very top at 47.9%, nearly 1 in 2 reaching 250,000 miles. Same 2UZ V8, same 90,000 mile belt, and a chassis engineered for places with no roads and no dealers. If you're looking at the Lexus Twin instead, know that the LX 470's height control suspension is the known weak point: worn accumulators, failing pumps, sensor faults. Solvable, but price it in. 10 down. Look at the pattern. You've now got enough examples to see. On every single one of these, the vehicle is not what fails: a radiator fails, a belt fails, a frame rots, a fuel-saving gimmick eats an engine. Cheap, specific, findable in a 10-minute inspection. Which means the buying skill isn't about brands at all, it's about knowing the one thing to check on that specific machine. From here the list gets more uncomfortable, because the next stretch includes vehicles I'd tell you to buy only in exactly the right model year, and one that's on the list purely because of a warranty that outlived the company's intentions. If the first 10 were useful to you, subscribing costs you nothing and means the next one of these lands in front of you. That's the whole ask. And stay with me for number 12 especially, because it's the setup for the part of this video that actually made me angry. Number 11. The Acura MDX 2014 through 2017. 3 rows, all-wheel drive, and a luxury badge that depreciates like a stone while the mechanicals underneath stay Honda. It sits at the very bottom of the top 25 longevity list at 9.1%. But that's still nearly double the average vehicle. It typically runs $15,000 to $20,000 cheaper than a comparable year German rival. The trade-off is a 9-speed automatic in later years that people complain about for shift quality. Annoying, not fatal. Fluid changes on schedule, not lifetime. Number 12. The Chevrolet Tahoe and Suburban. And this is the one where the model year decides everything. The engine to avoid is the Generation 4 Vortec 5300, the 5.3 V8 with active fuel management, in 2010 to 2014 vehicles. Owners of that era report burning a quart of oil every 2,000 miles, traced to low-tension piston rings that don't keep oil in the crankcase. Starting with some 2014 models, GM moved to a Generation 5 engine that was redesigned to fix it. So the practical instruction is simple. On a Tahoe or Suburban, buy 2015 or later, and you're buying a genuinely durable, full-size SUV with cheap parts everywhere and a mechanic on every corner. By 2010 to 2013, and you're rolling dice with an engine the manufacturer itself eventually replaced. Same badge, same displacement, and the difference between them is one meeting. Hold that thought. We're coming back to it, and it's worse than it sounds. Number 13, the Ford Escape and its twin, the Mercury Mariner, 2009 through 2012, with the 2.5 four-cylinder. Short entry, because there's not much to say, and that's the compliment. Timing chain, no belt clock. Parts on the shelf at every store in America. Skip the V6 if you want the simplest ownership. It won't make anyone jealous. It'll start. Number 14, the Honda Element, 2003 through 2011. Same K24 as the CR-V, plastic-clad flanks, a floor you can hose out. The catch is that they've become a cult object, so prices have stopped falling. If you find a rust-free one at a sane number, take it. If the seller talks about it like it's an investment, keep driving. Number 15. The Jeep Grand Cherokee, 1999 through 2004, with the 4.0 inline 6. Here's the outlier, and I'm including it with a warning attached. That inline 6 is one of the last genuinely simple engines sold in an SUV in America. You can see the ground through the engine bay, and the whole thing can be diagnosed with a test light and patience. Everything around it is cheaper: the electrics, the window regulators, the interior plastics. There's a long-standing belief in the owner community that a particular cylinder head casting used around 2000 and 2001 is prone to cracking. I want to be careful here because I've never seen that acknowledged in a formal filing or a recall notice. It's enthusiast consensus and a lot of anecdote, not a documented company admission. My honest position is that the pattern is real enough to check for coolant loss with no visible leak and not solid enough for me to state as fact. Buy it as a cheap, fixable second vehicle. Don't buy it as your only way to work. Number 16. The Subaru Forester, 2014 through 2018. Genuinely good in snow, genuinely well-shaped for humans, and carrying a history worth knowing. Subaru settled a class action over piston ring-related oil burning, raising the warranty from 5 years or 60,000 miles to 8 years or 100,000, and covering the affected 2.5 engines in 2011 to 2014, Foresters among others. The bar for a free fix was consuming more than a third of a quart in 1,200 miles. All expired now. So, check the oil level on the test drive, then drive it a week and check again if the seller allows it. A 2016 or later with a service history is the sweet spot. 15 and 16 were the compromise picks. From here to the end, no compromises. The next 4 are the ones with the numbers behind them, starting with the vehicle I promised you at the top. Number 17, the Toyota Sequoia 2nd generation 2008 onward. The study leader. Toyota takes 10 of the top 25 positions on the current longevity list, and the Sequoia leads the entire thing with a 39.1% predicted chance of reaching 250,000 miles. More than 8 times the 4.8% industry average. I'll flag a genuine disagreement in the sources here. Some write-ups call it 8.1 times the average, others 9.1, because they're comparing against the SUV-only figure rather than all vehicles. I'll take the smaller number. It's still enormous, and it goes further. An earlier study of top mileage examples found that 1% of Sequoias on the road carry at least 296,509 miles. Not estimated, observed on the odometer. Why this one? It's the combination. Body on frame like a truck, but bought and used like a family vehicle. So it gets highway miles instead of job site abuse. Iron block V8. A drivetrain shared with 3 other Toyota products, meaning parts volume keeps repair costs sane. And a cabin big enough that people keep finding reasons to hang on to it rather than trade it in at $140,000. The 2nd generation cars fall outside the frame rust settlement years I mentioned at number 7, but do the hammer test anyway if it spent its life where they salt the roads. Fuel economy is what you'd expect from a 2.5-ton box with a V8. That's the price of admission, and it's exactly why they're affordable. Number 18. The Mazda CX-5 2014 through 2016. The one non-Toyota, non-Honda pick I'd put money on without hesitating. Mazda sits 3rd on that Consumer Reports used reliability ranking, ahead of Honda, and the engineering reason is that Mazda spent that era doing the opposite of everyone else. No turbo, no cylinder deactivation, no complicated fuel-saving hardware. Just a high-compression, naturally aspirated 4 and a conventional automatic. And that transmission isn't sealed. It has a drain plug and a dipstick held in by a single small bolt. In 2014, somebody at Mazda argued for that and won, and you're the beneficiary. Number 19. The Kia Sorento and Hyundai Santa Fe Sport, 2013 through 2018, bought for a reason nobody expects. These engines have a bad reputation, and it's deserved. A $1.3 billion settlement. Consolidated class actions alleging Hyundai and Kia refused to recall vehicles with the Theta 2 engine. Despite knowing it was defective, representing roughly 3.9 million owners across model years around 2011 to 2019. In 2020, the federal safety regulator fined the 2 companies a combined $210 million for knowing about the defect and being slow to report it. Here's the twist. The claim deadlines have passed, but the lifetime warranty remains available to owners of covered vehicles who have had the knock sensor detection system software update installed. That software watches engine vibration for the pattern that develops as a connecting rod bearing wears and puts the vehicle into a reduced power protection mode before it seizes. You don't need to file anything to benefit as long as that update is on the car, so the play is precise. Run the VIN. Confirm the update is installed. Confirm the vehicle is a covered one. If all 3 land, you're buying a cheap SUV with engine coverage that no other used vehicle in this price range comes with. If any one of them doesn't land, walk. This is the single most conditional recommendation on the list, and I'd rather say that plainly than pretend it's simple. Number 20. The Toyota Highlander Hybrid 2006 through 2013. I'm closing here because it kills the assumption that a hybrid is a liability at high mileage. 5 hybrids made the current top 25 longest-lasting list, up from 3 the year before and 0 2 years before that. And the hybrid Highlander ranks above the non-hybrid version at 15.7%. Because what gets a vehicle to 250,000 miles is durability combined with the kind of usefulness that keeps people driving it. The electric motor also takes load off the transmission at the exact moment a conventional automatic works hardest. That's not marketing. That's just where the torque comes from. Now, back to number 12, because I owe you the rest of that story. Go back to that oil-burning V8. You were told when you bought it that active fuel management was a fuel-saving feature. Here's what you weren't told. The claim in court was that the company knew as far back as 2010, having issued a service bulletin in September of that year about oil consumption in certain 2007 and 2008 vehicles, and another in January 2013 covering 2007 through 2011. What you were sold as a fuel-saving feature was, in the plaintiff's account, a system whose oil pressure relief valve sprayed oil directly at the underside of the pistons every time the cylinders shut down, combined with piston rings too weak to scrape it back off. Two design choices that only cause a problem when they meet. And they met on every one of those engines, every day you drove it. Now hold that next to what you were offered when you complained. Not a piston replacement, not a recall. In many cases, a software update, recalibrating how the system behaved, plus advice to use a different oil and check the level more often. A hardware fault answered with a line of code and a suggestion that you monitor it yourself. Read that again as what it actually is. You brought them a mechanical defect and they handed you a chore. From that moment on, the maintenance of a design decision you never made and were never told about became your unpaid job, for as long as you owned the vehicle. And if you missed a check and something let go, the sentence waiting for you was that you failed to maintain it. That's the trick, and once you see it, you'll see it everywhere. The patch isn't a fix, the patch is a transfer. It moves the cost of a bad decision off a balance sheet and onto your Saturday morning. Toyota's oil consumption program made you drive 1,200 sealed miles and fail a test before you qualified. Nissan's settlement came with deductibles up to $3,000, which on a used truck is most of what the truck is worth. Subaru raised a warranty to 8 years and set the bar at 1/3 of a quart in 1,200 miles, which is a threshold, not a promise. Every one of those is legally defensible, and every one of them ends with you holding something you didn't build. And here's the part that should decide how you spend your money. You are not the person that arrangement was designed for. That deal was written for the first owner under warranty inside a window that is now closed on every vehicle in this video. Which means when you buy used, the patch is worth nothing to you at all, unless, as with number 19, the coverage genuinely survives the sale and you can verify it on the VIN. So the question you ask at the curb is no longer, is this a good vehicle? It's narrower and far more useful. Was the known fault fixed in metal, or was it managed with a suggestion? A redesigned radiator is metal. A Generation 5 engine is metal. A revised piston is metal. A software update, a heavier oil, and a note telling you to check the level weekly. That's a suggestion, and suggestions don't survive 3 owners and 100,000 miles. There's something underneath all of this worth saying out loud, and it isn't about corporations. Every vehicle on this list is here because somebody somewhere made a decision to leave a thing serviceable. A drain plug and a dipstick on a Mazda transmission in 2014. An iron block on a Toyota V8 when aluminum was cheaper and lighter, a non-interference V6 in a Honda, so a broken belt means a tow instead of a funeral. None of those decisions won an award. Nobody put them on the window sticker. They were arguments somebody had in a meeting and won, and then went home and never mentioned again. And now, 20 years later, that argument is why a family with $9,000 can own something that starts every morning. That's the whole inheritance. Not the badge, not the styling, just a handful of people who assumed a stranger would one day be underneath the thing with a wrench and built it accordingly. You can still find their work out there on the 3rd and 4th owner doing exactly what they meant it to do. Here's how you actually use all of this. Don't shop by nameplate. Run this sequence instead in this order on any used SUV you're looking at. 1. Find out what the known fault is on that exact engine and model year before you go and see it. 15 minutes on the owner's forums, not the sales listings. 2. Determine whether it was fixed in metal or managed with a suggestion. If it was fixed in metal, find the model year the fix landed and only look at that year forward. If it was managed with a suggestion, either walk or price the permanent fix and take it off the asking price. 3. Check fluids in daylight with your own eyes. Transmission fluid red or brown, not pink. Oil on the stick, not just clean looking on the cap. Coolant clear of oil film. 4. Get under it with a small hammer and tap the frame rails, especially over the rear axle. Ring is good. Thud is the end of the conversation. 5. Ask for the timing belt receipt if it's a belt engine and take the full replacement cost off the price if there isn't one. Run those 5 and you will buy better than nearly everybody at that lot, including some of the people selling, and this is what it looks like when it works. Sometime in the next few years, a bill you were expecting simply doesn't arrive. No transmission, no engine, just tires, brakes, fluids, and a battery spread out over years on a vehicle that's already outlived 2 newer ones parked next to it. That's not luck. That's the 15 minutes you spent before you drove out to look at it. Now, I want to hear from the people who think I got one wrong, and I'd bet good money that's the Jeep at 15 and the Kia at 19. If you've owned either one, tell me what actually happened with the mileage and the repair bill attached, because your hands beat my reading every time. And if you've got one out there past 250,000 miles, I want the number, the year, and the one part you replaced more than once. Those comments are the best thing about doing this, and I read every one of them. If this was worth your time, subscribe, because there's a thread here I deliberately didn't pull today. There's a class of vehicle where the engine outlasts everything else by such a margin that the thing that finally kills it is an electronic module nobody can source anymore. And I'm still trying to work out where exactly that line falls. When I've got it straight, I'll bring it to you. Until then, check the fluid before you check the paint.